look at the standings for these teams in the very first round between El Salvador and Thailand, we'll already see that Thailand has already won this match, and Thailand has already qualified, and they'll be facing Malaysia in the top 16. El Salvador is not out yet, though. They're waiting for the results of India and Portugal. El Salvador qualifies if India does not win. So either El Salvador or India will face the United States in top 16. So this has a lot of impact for you and I, Gabby, based on, the United States could play El Salvador or India. And we know India had a really nice match yesterday. Rajan's stream match was very interesting to watch as well.
Yeah, and I really cannot wait to see how that's going to play out. So let's start by taking a look at the teams for Miguel and Sahapol going into this match. So the first player we'll be taking a look at will be for a later match.
Sorry.
We're just gonna roll through things for a little bit. But hey, it's a Sunday. You gotta get those brains working sometimes. I sure know that for myself. We're gonna take a look at Sahapol's team at first, and those are some Pokemon I wasn't expecting to see already. So I am excited for this one, Maeve.
Oh yeah, we have a Dawnwings Necrozma to open us off for a restricted Stakataka. Entei being the only Pokemon that really looks familiar to me in Series 10 with that Torkoal, Guzzlord, which is the least used Ultra Beast, I believe, and then Togekiss. So Togekiss was great in series that didn't have restricted Pokemon, until Zacian came along. Togekiss was awesome. People ran Crit Togekiss with Scope Lens and Super Lock. People also ran Utility Togekiss, the ones that would, carry more Follow Me. You really saw it all. Torkoal's been around for a while, and it is going to be nice to set up that sun for its partner, Entei. However, some of the other aspects of this team, Gabby, are very interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a Trick Room team at its core. You have the Stakataka, the Guzzlord, and the Torkoal. All three of those Pokemon do love to operate under the Twisted Dimensions, and Duskmane Necrozma has been known to be like the faster sort of Pokemon on teams that have Trick Room options. I mean, we saw that a decent amount back in the 2019 metagame. And it's interesting that I think overall the metagame of Series 10 is starting to open up more for those Trick Room oriented Pokemon. But I'm more curious to see if Miguel, Sahapol's opponent, if we want to jump over to Miguel's team, is running a team that can adapt to Trick Room. And already, even though it looks very standard, there are some really strong answers to that present.
Yeah, one answer I really love. First off, obviously Fake Out Incineroar, but Whimsicott's another Pokemon with great utility. However, the rest of the Pokemon for Miguel, he's got that Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Nihilego, Rillaboom, Urshifu, and then of course the Whimsicott and the Incineroar. Whimsicott's my favorite Pokemon, so I am very biased here.
Yeah, but a Whimsicott and a Calyrex Shadow lead will certainly shut down, I think, a majority of the ways that Sahapol has to set up Trick Room. So let's jump into team preview, get this game started, and talk about how this matchup is going to be put together. Since I think that this game is going to have a really fun start where you have to wonder, if you're Sahapol, do you start with a Trick Room lead, or do you maybe rely on the more faster Pokemon? I was honestly expecting to see his Entei carrying a Choice Scarf given the rest of the team, but this is a very, very bulky team.
I'm immediately looking at the room service Torkoal.
That
room
too
service is one of my favorite new items. I thought it was such a cool item when it first premiered with this game of Sword and Shield. It hasn't seen a whole lot of use just because, Torkoal can run with some better items, but I love that on a Trick Room team. I also love having no Choice Scarf if you're trying to slow yourself down a little bit. Safety Goggles is really nice as well, but I'm also seeing Scope Lens Togekiss, and that makes me excited.
Yeah, and I think that we do have to talk about the possible leads. And I really like how Sahapol has already selected the Guzzlord. May not stick with it apparently, but you have to think that if you're Miguel, that you would be going with Calyrex, a Shadow Rider, plus Whimsicott. Whimsicott to be like your, I'm going to stop Trick Room Pokemon, most likely having access to Taunt, or sometimes a Trick Room of its own. It can happen. And then the Shadow Calyrex just there for big, big damage. So I don't think Miguel should deviate too far from that standard in Game 1. Game 2 and Game 3 most certainly if we get there, but For now, it would be just a good way to, start things off, see what your opponent's going to do, and then respond accordingly.
Yeah, and for this game run, we actually have the Nihilego and Incineroar lead here for, excuse me, and then the Guzzlord and the Dawnwing's Necrozma here. Again, with Guzzlord, one thing I love is the wide guard as well that it really has been carrying. It's not going to love taking this Intimidate just because, having that fake out pressure on this next turn. But one thing is interesting is this Nihilego too. It could go for something like a Meteor Beam right off the bat and just try and take a lot of damage, but there aren't any double targeting moves on either side of the field.
No, there are not. And the Nihilego is also a curious pick, in my opinion, because Nihilego is known to be kind of a weird Trick Room setter of its own. So it's possible that Miguel brought Nihilego to see if or when Trick Room would be making an appearance from Sahapol's side of the field, and then using the Nihilego to, get that special attack boost, get the damage down, sure, but also have a option of speed control. No fake out, just pure damage for starters. This, assuming the power herb is there, this is going to be a fantastic start to game one.
Yeah, this Meteor Beam in one turn, because of that power herb, it does not miss here, which is very important. Again, one of those moves that should not miss if it's 2-turn, but it does still half of the damage to that very bulky Guzzlord, who is now going to eat its berry and gain back some of that HP. Amazing how strong that move is and how much of a special attacker Nihilego is. Necrozma also goes for its own Meteor Beam here, though, retaliating with the exact same choice, gonna get that power up for itself, hoping for both Meteor Beams here to hit, or else that's a really tough loss of already using that power herb. However, it does look like it connects. It could connect to either two of these Pokemon and still do really nice damage. The Incineroar is a great option, is enough to knock out that Incineroar in one turn. That Incineroar didn't go for any sort of interesting moves here. Well, no fake out, because now that Guzzlord's able to get that Snarl and lower the special attack of this Nihilego.
Yeah, that was a very, very interesting start to this game one. I think a lot of Incineroar right now are usually specially bulky enough that they could take something like that Power Herb from full health, but because the Dawnwing Necrozma has a fairly high special attack stat, or possibly just a good indication of how that Incineroar was trained, it just got completely knocked out. He could have gone for a fake out onto the Guzzlord there, but I think Dawnwing's Necrozma is the Pokemon that's obviously going to be doing big damage in this setup, and you can't really stop it unless you go for a dark type attack. So a rough loss there. I think that the Whimsicott probably would have preferred to come out once the Dawnwing's Necrozma has been removed from the field, but Sahapol just purely in a position where he can just keep this offense train going.
Yeah, but it is going to make a couple of turns to do so. Whimsicott goes for an Encore, while a Sludge Bomb from the Nihilego into the Guzzlord gets it back under half of its HP. Now going for another Snarl will lower the special attack on both of these Pokemon, but if this Whimsicott is holding a Focus Sash, most importantly, it's going to break that. So now this Whimsicott can't survive any one-hit KO moves. It's actually not, though, because we see the eject button for that Whimsicott. Sending that Whimsicott back, it's going to reveal Miguel's fourth Pokemon.
And the the Dawnwing's Necrozma that looks like a Lunala has not moved yet, which means the Dawnwing's Necrozma actually locked into Trick Room prior to the Encore. So that was a great way for Miguel to stop that attack, and not only that, just force this Necrozma to charge up another turn. Does get the opportunity to raise its special attack by one stage, but now that Shadow Calyrex is on the field, it can go for a Astral Barrage and just knock it out in one hit, most likely. So a very good play from Whimsicott there. Eject button is one of those items that can be a huge disadvantage when you're like flinched by a fake out prior to being able to attack, but on this turn especially, everything played out perfectly. So very well played by Miguel.
Yeah, one thing I think that Sahapol has to be really mindful of too with those Astral Barrages is he has his Wide Guard user on the field, and Miguel most likely knows that Guzzlord does use Wide Guard very liberally here. Calyrex instead will go for a Protect, so it's not going to take any damage possibly this turn. Guzzlord goes for the Wide Guard, which isn't really going to have any effect because there is no Astral Barrage here from Miguel's side. Nihilego goes for a Sludge Bomb again, though. Once again into the Guzzlord. This Nihilego is not very strong right now, but it's getting really nice damage off. However, this Meteor Beam goes into the Nihilego slot, which is great because now you've got this Nihilego who actually survives, even with that extra special attack bonus. But now that Nihilego is still in the field and you can't swap in your Whimsicott at the very end, this Nihilego could just only take one more move hit and get knocked out.
That might work out for the best, though, because at that point in time, the Guzzlord should be knocked out. I mean, the Dawnwing's Necrozma, I guess it could switch up its move. It's Encore into Meteor Beam, so it can't switch up its move, which means that the only Pokemon that will be able to attack this turn is going to be that Guzzlord, which is definitely slower than Nihilego. So I think that Miguel has the opportunity to ensure that the Whimsicott and the Calyrex are out together once Guzzlord has been removed from the field. All it will take is just another Sludge Bomb, and that's it.
Yeah, Entei swaps out here, though, along with the Calyrex swapping out for the Whimsicott. Guzzlord goes for that wide guard once again, so it will still be able to take the Sludge Bomb from this Nihilego, who is going to go for that damage. This is going to be really close. It is not enough to knock out, but it does get the poison, so it will be taking a little bit of extra damage at the end of this turn with no way to recover it. And it is enough to knock it out. That was just right on the cusp in my head. I could not tell exactly. So losing that Guzzlord now from that poison is absolutely huge. That was exactly the amount of damage they needed.
It really was. And it is unfortunate that the poison happened, and that's just how it goes sometimes. I think the more important thing to pay attention to here is that the Whimsicott is back out onto the field, and I'm pretty sure Sahapol will be locking in his moves very carefully this turn to hopefully ensure that another Encore won't happen. The one thing you have to be very careful about, especially with a fast Encore user like Whimsicott, is that every time you select a move, you make sure that, hypothetically, if you were to be Encored into it next turn, would you be okay with being locked into that move for what will realistically be the remainder of the match? And, I mean, Sahapol does still have one Pokemon in the back of his party that he can pivot to, so it might not be the end of the world, but if Nihilego is able to find a surprising knockout here, that could certainly change things.
Yeah, and Whimsicott goes for the Protect. Entei is carrying extreme speed, though. That'll be enough to easily take this Nihilego out, who had probably 1 or 2 HP left in its party. So Miguel is going to have to send his Calyrex out here. But most importantly, there isn't going to be any Wide Guard while this Necrozma goes for the Trick Room. So this Calyrex is going to come in, and it's going to be one of the slowest things on the field.
And I really like how Sahapol set up Trick Room because of that. I think that Calyrex Shadow Rider is a very difficult Pokemon to face off against, especially if you're trying to beat it in the speed control department when you're looking to match a Tailwind or when you don't have access to a Pokemon with Choice Scarf. The unfortunate thing about Guzzlord being knocked out is that, those super effective attacks won't necessarily find it. I say necessarily because we do have a little bit of a sneak preview of Entei's moveset, and surprisingly enough, there is something in there that can get that super effective damage, but I think Sahapol just very correctly targeting the Whimsicott instead. Miguel's only option to win at this point would be to stall out Trick Room, and something like Encore would really help with that, since not only would it force Sahapol to choose moves, it may force him to switch. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, Necrozma swaps out here, brings in Torkoal, who's going to activate his very nice room service to slow him down that one stage and get the sun up. Calyrex goes for a Protect here, not going to take any damage to time this out. Whimsicott goes for Encore, but it is not going to do anything because that swap for that Torkoal. A Sacred Fire here is going to be enough to easily knock this Whimsicott out with that boost from the sun. So now, like you said, that's really nice to be hiding that information of what that Entei's carrying, especially if you have at least one more game ahead of you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes. I also really like that switch because I'm actually very curious to see how Miguel's going to play knowing the Torkoal's held item. Maybe not necessarily for this game, as we do see Miguel lock in the forfeit. But the room service on that team, in my opinion, is most likely there so that the Torkoal can underspeed the Stakataka. Or possibly the Guzzlord. I forget where Guzzlord hits in terms of speed with Torkoal, since that's something I honestly haven't paid attention to in a while. But it does mean that Torkoal will be able to break focus sashes or, do chip damage with Eruption prior to the Stakataka moving. And I think that will definitely dictate how Trick Room sort of played if it gets set up. So going into game 2, if you want to get that started, I think that Sahapol has to really consider how he's going to set up Trick Room and whether or not that approach will work again. Meanwhile, Miguel has to find a way to get that Trick Room to not stay on the field, and Encore might be a little bit too slow for it.
I do want to say though, guys, I am remembering because of this game, we are not going to have a game two because there was a disconnect in this recording. And we are also seeing this right now live, so we won't be able to commentate a game two. However, we will be going into a game three here. So that does mean that it is technically 1-1. So this will be a deciding game three for both of these players. We aren't able to exactly see what they did during that game two and what adjustments they made. But you still have to be pretty mindful based on, what happens even in a disconnect, what your opponent's plan was, and then opportunities for, adjusting to their adjustments and all of the mind games that go along with that.
Yeah, we can probably infer a couple of things about game two. At least the start of game two, as a disconnect does mean you just jump straight to game three. But based off of what Pokemon Miguel leads, it looks like Sahapol is going for a similar set of 4 Pokemon like we saw in that game one. So presumably either adjusted game two and it was going poorly, or has just decided that this is the best matchup for them moving forward. Miguel, on the other hand, I would love to see an Incineroar lead with something else other than the Nihilego. I don't think Nihilego is necessarily the Pokemon you bring against a Psychic type Pokemon like or Duskmane Necrozma, but interestingly enough, we do see those adaptations.
Yeah, Urshifu, Calyrex here, and then we also see the Guzzlord and the Necrozma Dawnwings. So the same lead from game one that had worked so well for them in the past. However, no Nihilego. So if you're going for something like that wide guard this turn, you're going to be in a much better position to do it.
Yeah, and I also think that Urshifu is probably one of the best Pokemon on Miguel's team in order to deal damage to that Guzzlord, as it is usually bulky in the special defense side of things. And Urshifu's ability to Rapid Strike, get those 3 hits with the critical hits, will also go through Wide Guard as its single target, and that's going to be really important for Miguel.
Yeah, Calyrex actually goes for that Shadow Ball, though. Showing that hidden tech is enough to knock out the Necrozma in one hit, so a huge piece of information that if it was shown game 2, that would have been really nice for us to have known. But for us, it's as much of a surprise as it is for you. Grim Neigh boost for that Calyrex as well, showing the Life Orb. Urshifu goes for close combat, actually, does so much damage to this Guzzlord, gets it down to just 31 HP out of 300, so that shows exactly how bulky Guzzlord is, while the Urshifu does get that drop of its defense and special defense stat. But I think that did exactly what they needed it to do in this first turn, because now Trick Room can't get set.
Exactly. And I agree with you that the Shadow Ball most likely was not revealed in game 2, as I don't think Sahapol would have left himself that wide open for it. So very, very, very well played by Miguel there. And given that we have the advantage of knowing the Entei has the Assault Vest, it's probably on the bulkier side, can probably take 1 round of attacks from this Urshifu if he decides to go for it. I think what you have to do is you have to double into the Calyrex Shadow Rider and just hope that somehow you can find your way through the match. Sahapol also could possibly switch in that Torkoal, set up the Drought to weaken those water-type attacks from the Urshifu as well, if the Entei surviving is something he's worried about. But really, out of 2 very scary Pokemon, you have to prioritize the Calyrex, unfortunately, and then worry about the Urshifu.
And then worrying about whatever else Miguel has in the back. As the Guzzlord swaps out for the Torkoal, like you said, setting the sun, going to help protect its partner Entei here from some really strong Surging Strikes from the Urshifu across the field. However, Calyrex goes for Shadow Ball again, so it's not going for a double type attack, even with Guzzlord on the field, is enough to knock out Torkoal in one hit with that one Grim Neigh boost. Now it gets up to +2, which is absolutely massive, because this thing, if it goes for an Astral Barrage in that next turn, should be comfortable to knock out either Pokemon here. We are seeing the Surging Strikes. This will do a nice amount of damage, but we did see that it had the Assault Vest, like you said, so this will not be enough to knock it out just based on these hits that I'm seeing right now. And I saw that Entei clicked into Crunch, which if that hasn't been shown yet in game 2, that's going to be really important as well. Exactly how much damage it does, I'm not entirely sure, but it could be really powerful and enough to get this off the field, and it is. So now Calyrex is off the field with a critical hit to boot. So Sahapol at least knows that he has his one Guzzlord, who, slowest thing on the field, not a lot of HP, but it means that there is at least 2 Pokemon on the field, and you have to still deal with this Entei with extreme speed.
Yes. Unfortunately, though, I don't think the Urshifu has enough chip damage for extreme speed to make a difference, and certainly Nihilego will not be one hit by a move that it resists. So, again, very strong start to this game 3 by Miguel. I does make me wonder if Crunch was revealed in game 2, because I think ultimately it didn't necessarily make a difference in how this game was played out. It's nice that Guzzlord got to eat his berry, I guess, before the end of the game. I mean, Unnerve stopped that, so
Very on
he
brand.
looks he looks like he needs a snack, you know? He gets his snack and then he gets to go be cozy once the battle's over.
Yeah, definitely a much faster game 3 here than that game 1. Miguel had such a commanding lead right at the very beginning by using that Shadow Ball to just completely knock out the
Yeah.
Necrozma before it was able to even get off a powerful move like a Meteor Beam or set up that Trick Room to be able to deal with that Calyrex better, especially when you have faster Pokemon like that Nihilego in the back who loves to move first and get those really big Meteor Beams off. So a really excellent game played by both players. The game 1 I thought was really nice. I loved all the adjustments from game 1 to game 3 from both players, but Guzzlord is such an interesting Pokemon and it holds a really weird special spot in my heart. It's not like right up front or anything, but it is still a really cool Pokemon to see in Series 10. Necrozma as well is another one that we haven't been seeing as much, but we're seeing a lot of really interesting team building towards the end here, especially now, because you see all these really standard Pokemon like the Calyrex and the Zash, and you're like, how can I fake them out and take that down without them knowing exactly what it is I'm doing and having to take a lot of notes in game 1?
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to call out is it's possible that the Shadow Calyrex was holding something like the choice specs as well. I couldn't really tell for sure because we didn't get to see too many attacks from it, unfortunately, before Grimnay just made everything quote unquote too powerful. But I don't think we got any data that necessarily confirmed what item it was holding. So just something as well to sort of keep in mind when you look at that team, because I think running something like Choice Specs is maybe not as innovative as a Guzzlord, but I think it's still, something unique about that team.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like I've been seeing a lot of choice items on Pokemon that shouldn't
Oh,
really be
yeah.
holding choice items recently. We saw that choice Scarf Regieleki yesterday in that game that Jamie and I did, and that was one of those Pokemon that was very absurdly fast, where you wouldn't think that it needed that much speed, but it was outspeeding other Pokemon in Tailwind, so you can understand why it is useful. So, a really nice match from both players. Unfortunately, this is the end, I believe, for El Salvador this weekend. So it has been awesome seeing some really interesting teams. However, El Salvador could possibly still make it through depending on if India wins. So actually, it's not fully the end. It's just at that really nail biter point of what's going to happen. Are they going to play the United States or will it be India?
Yeah, well, they'll find out that soon. We'll find out our next match or more information about our next match real soon. So thank you for watching, everybody. This is the World Cup of VGC by Victory Road, sponsored by Elgato. Please stay tuned. Thanks for watching.